Good evening and welcome to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Back at it here on an election night. I hope everybody did their part and voted today, voting on all things Chiefs. With us as always, Jeffrey Chadiha, NFL Network, NFL.com. I mean, Jeff Chadiha, I usually call him. Sometimes I even tweet out at Jeff Chadiha, even though it's at Jeffrey Chadiha. But do you think I would get it right at this point? But my faux pas today. So if you saw that, congratulations. Give yourself 4 points for my mistake. Eric Eager from Sumer Sports, sumersports.com. Of course, I don't know if I mentioned Jeff. NFL Network, NFL.com, where you can read his great column and, of course, see him on the television. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City, 810WHB.com to stream the show. I'm on 2 to 6 Central Time. We stream this podcast live. If you're catching us via the podcast, every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Central, and a lot to get to. Lucky or good? How do we describe a 20-17 win over the Tennessee Titans when Ryan Tannehill made the difference in this game? This game make MVP, make Patrick Mahomes the MVP frontrunner. How big a problem are the running backs? Has anybody seen Ronald Jones? Do we know if he's still alive? JuJuSmith-Schuster, is he truly a number one? What's his future with the team? Where are we at? 229 yards and 17 points is all the defense allowed. Is Jeff ready to call this defense good? I don't know. You have to wait and see. Level of concern with Harrison Butker and his injuries of the Jags. Is this game on Sunday a trap game for the Chiefs coming off the Titans? Chargers is a look ahead on the other side. We'll give our predictions on this. All of it coming up here on this mad-capped election night of Red, Gold, and Bold. Jeff, let's start with you. Lucky or good? What do you got for these Kansas City Chiefs?
Lucky. Lucky that Ryan Tannehill wasn't playing. Lucky that Malik Willis was at quarterback. I give them credit for the way the quarterback played. Mahomes really showed his will, his brilliance in this game. I think he, if he's not even, if he's 1/10 of what he was on Sunday night, they lose this game because they didn't get a lot from a lot of other people on this team. And this game was what we said it was going to be. I mean, Eric and I told you last week it's going to be a close game. Doesn't matter who they put out there quarterback. I think we said that, Eric. Didn't we say that? Did we say that?
I didn't remember that.
But not only that, but I went on Petro's show a day later and was chastised for saying the running backs and the running game sucked. And Petro stopped me in my tracks and made me defend my dissertation about how the running backs are bad on air. It was pretty. But yes, Jeff and I were on the same page. And
I think we all nailed it, as I recall.
Yeah. And so, I mean, look, I think the Titans proved that they're a better team than people thought that they were. If they had the ability to get one more field goal in that game, the Chiefs don't come back and win it. It is what it is. I think Mike Vrabel had a great game plan. Chiefs didn't play that great. And it came down to Patrick Mahomes being the best player on the field, as it usually does.
Yeah. So lucky is where Jeff Chadiha goes. Eric, luck, just good. Good teams find a way to win close games. Where do you sit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Titans just kind of are good at stuff, right? Like they do things. I tweeted this out from the Sumer Sports. If you want to follow us on Twitter at Sumer Sports. By the way, I tweeted out a graphic of the Titans' efficiency on defensively on early downs and late downs, and they're just really good at third down defense. And I don't know if that's, usually that's pretty noisy. By the way, Chiefs are pretty good on third down defense as well. But they have the Chiefs number in a lot of different ways. They can rush 4, they can play back. They don't really have a ton in the way of talent at the corner position, but they're still able to do things. It was a weird game, right? Like I joke on Twitter, there's two types of Andy. There's Andy Reid, right? And we saw Andy Reid against the Niners, and then there's Drew, and we saw Drew against the Titans. And it's just whether or not a guy calls the good plays, and he didn't call the good plays on Sunday. And he really, Patrick kind of carried that whole team. So I disagree with Jeff in the sense that whenever your quarterback carries you to a victory and you're paying him to carry you to a victory, it's less luck. But I do agree that, if the Titans, convert on that interception or so, they convert on a few plays, the Chiefs lose that game. And, it took, a 30-yard run on 3rd and 17. It took 2 penalties on the 2-point conversion to tie the game. It's there's a lot of things that were fortuitous for the Chiefs, and I think they come out of that game wondering, okay, who on offense can they really rely on? And I think that's a good question right now.
I bristle on the lucky. I mean, I'll never say a team's lucky, right? Like, I guess they're lucky to win 12 games every year. Like, is that what happens?
So you think if Ryan Tannehill is on the field, that game goes the same way?
I mean, I think the game plans are different. I mean, like, I'll say this: if they play in the playoffs with Tannehill, I'm going to be calling for the ass kicking again. I will. I give.
They've won 5 out of 7 games in this Tennessee. With 5 out of 7 games here,
they've won 4 out of 6,
and none of them been blowouts. They've not been blown in any of these games.
Not for the Chiefs, they haven't. I think. I think. There's a lot.
Petro, don't put that comment on the. Do not.
Which one?
The Brett Roberts one. Just don't.
Did I put it up there? I didn't.
No, I'm just saying don't.
Oh, I'm still behind. I'm trying to catch up with everybody. People.
Love you, Brett.
I know people aren't going to like what Jeff had to say. I'm kind of with Terry. Good teams find a way to win close games. I'm adamant about that because.
But isn't Petro? That doesn't. Jeff didn't say that they're not good. Jeff said they got lucky on Sunday. I think that those two things are compatible with each other.
I never listen. I will say this: was I wrong about the game? 100%, 100%, or 99, right? Because I really did. And at 9-0, let me tell you something. I pulled a muscle, patting myself on the back. I mean, if you were in my house, you saw a guy with a couple of Coronas in him that was talking some major smack about how I nailed this game. And I even got up at one point, took my own belt off my shorts and was acting like I was going to start putting down the beating. I mean, at 9-0, pending the Harrison Butker extra point, I really thought I'm like, I nailed this one. Jeff Chadiha and Eric Eager are going to kiss my ass when we get to Red, Gold, and Bold on Tuesday because I nailed it, and I didn't. Right? I'm absolutely wrong, and so I digress. I bow to your guys' much better read on this game. But at 9-0, I do think that I think that I'm not going to say they were an extra point away. I do feel like the extra point was a big air out of the balloon. I always think it's a big letdown for the team that scores. I think it sucks. I don't think it helped. But this game, should have been a Chiefs 3-point win if Harrison Butker can make kicks in regulation. It would have a different feel for that if that were the case. And I do think if he makes that extra point, it's 10-0. They're a stop and a score away from it being over, and the route is on because you got to come out of that run-only style. And I give all the credit in the world to the Titans and Mike Vrabel and to both of you guys for having a better read on this because they hung tough. I'm a huge Vrabel fan. But it was close. I mean, they were teetering on the edge when they were down like that, and they kept it together. And I give them all the credit in the world. But lucky for the Chiefs. I mean, were the Chiefs? The Titans unlucky when the Chiefs were up 10-0? No. Were they unlucky when they went?
It's the whole point is the quarterback was not an NFL caliber quarterback at this point. That's what I'm saying made them unlucky. If they have a good quarterback over there, their offense operates different. They were 1 for 11 on 3rd down.
Yeah, and I will say that definitely contributed. But I think that's part of the game plan that the Chiefs had. I think if Tannehill's playing and they've got more going on. By the way, Tannehill's had about 18 good games with the Titans at his time. He was nothing special last year. But I think the game plan's different. I think the Chiefs. I think you can only view the game through the lens of what it had. Right? Like we can talk that they go back and play. Oh, it's going to be different this time because now it's going to be a route for the Titans. Maybe it will, but I think you design a game plan based upon what you're going to get. I don't think anybody thought that they were going to see Tannehill. I think the Chiefs' game plan was probably flawed because they thought they could play it more conservative, and I think they kept the Titans hanging in the game. But
are we focusing? Are we focusing on the wrong side of the ball? Like. The Chiefs scored 20 points, and they had 9 points going into the last drive of the fourth quarter. Like, to me, that's the story. The story, if the Titans scored 23 points, they win. And I think a median expectation for a Titans offense against the Chiefs defense is more than 23 points. The problem was, you had the running backs. And again, I cannot believe we've talked ourselves into Isaiah Pacheco. But like we have Isaiah Pacheco, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 9 carries for 10 yards or 10 carries for 9 yards? I don't care at this point. Pat's the leading rusher by Jerick McKinnon's playing 60 snaps in that game because, as I've said on this show, when they need a real running back, they put him in the game. Marquez Valdez-Scantling plays like 70 snaps and gets 1 target the whole game. Travis, that was the worst game Travis Kelce's played. I know he looked banged up. That was one of the worst performances we've seen out of Kelce in years, right? Like the offense was out of sorts. And I think it's, when you look at the games against Titans, the last 2.5, right? If you take the first half of the AFC title game in 2019, the last 2.5, they've been bad, right? Like the offense was the reason, like the Chiefs defense, it should be a rounding error what the Chiefs defense gives up given their offense. This is all about the offense. If the offense can score a normal amount of points, they win this game. And the Titans are shorthanded, right? Bud Dupree barely, they don't have guys, and yet they'd befuddled the Chiefs. Like that's the fundamental issue. And it's again the issue that we talked about, which is in home games, Andy Reid come against not great teams. Andy Reid comes out flat, and that was the handicap, right?
But he didn't come out flat. He came out up what should have been 10-0, right? Like that's like look.
When I say come out flat, I mean. When I say come out flat, I mean like the Dallas game last year where they score on the first drive. Harrison Butker misses an extra point, right? They don't score again really the rest of the freaking game, right? The Packers game, they score on the first drive. They don't really score the rest of the game. Like we've seen this out of Andy Reid. When I say come out flat, I mean the scripted plays are good, but after the scripted plays, Andy's got no answers. That game was completely Patrick Mahomes.
So let me ask you a question. Then the Bills got unlucky? Because the Bills lost a game like this. Like that's what I don't get. Like everybody's still gonna be all over the Bills knob here moving forward as long as Josh Allen's healthy. But nobody like the perspective is just that, your team, our team, fans think of it as, well, we've got all these problems. Everything's fine in Buffalo. And we'll talk more about that on 2 Deep tomorrow, I know. But it's just the perspective of everything is always from a standpoint of the team you root for and or cover. It's always taken through their lens, okay?
Sure, and I'm giving the Titans credit, Petro.
Yeah, but through their lens, the view is, well, Tennessee is missing this or that or whatever. In Tennessee, they're not saying this. They're saying the Titans blew it. The Titans had them on the ropes. The Titans didn't finish. The Titans couldn't do this. The Titans have got – why did they draft Malik Willis? When are they going to get some wide receivers? Everything is from I know because I was on down there. And everything from that is – the Titans blew this game. And that's always what the perspective is instead of a picture from both sides.
But Petro, I literally just said they didn't throw to Valdez-Scantling. They couldn't run the ball with the running backs.
Well, you've got your hit list.
Bad plays.
Eric, you've got your hit list you're going to play. You're trying so hard. Like, you're on. Are you – wait a minute. Are you the former PFF grader that was fueling the Marquez Valdez-Scantling agents to boost his value in free agency?
No.
You didn't hear that from the Kelce brothers who accused agents of paying PFF graders to boost their players' PFF grades?
Petro, I have a PhD.
What are we talking about?
I have a PhD in math. I'm not grading football players. I'm just saying, look, like my issue is when I get it. I know you and Sam talked about it. The Niners were aggressive. Chiefs took advantage of it. The Titans were passive defensively. They have a harder time, right? This is the same team that last season led the NFL in points per drive and had the fewest number of drives in football. That was the formula to sort of slow the Chiefs down last year, was to just extend the game. But the issue is if it was a combination of not calling the quick game, right? And when they called the quick game, drops. Travis Kelce dropping passes, McCole Hardman dropping passes. It was, and I said that, Petro. I didn't talk about that. I said the Titans were banged up, and I said it was impressive that they could stop the Chiefs, but I put a lot of the blame on the Chiefs. Like I don't think they played their best game on offense. Do you not agree?
No, I definitely agree they didn't play their best game on offense, and that's why I don't call them lucky. When it came time to make plays, they made plays like they do all the time. And I don't know how you could ever Tom Brady's the luckiest MFer, I guess, that ever lived, because there are a lot of close ones for Tom Brady. And look, I'm not going to call Tom Brady lucky because he won close games. I'm not going to call him lucky because the Rams couldn't score in the Super Bowl. 7 times he's champion. He's lucky because Russell Wilson throws a pick instead of them giving it to Marshawn Lynch. I won't go down that road because you end up deconstructing every success story that's out there.
All right. The next time the Chiefs play a game without Patrick Mahomes and get beat, I want you to be the first to say that team that beat them was just good.
That injuries are a part of the game. I mean,
the starting quarterback was gone.
Yeah, but there's no doubt. There's no doubt it's easier to win when the starting quarterback is out. But I agree with one of the comments that was there earlier. Ryan Tannehill would have been a statue. The game plan would have been different.
Would have been a statue?
Yes.
Has he not run for touchdowns against the Chiefs?
I don't know.
Did I miss something?
I don't know.
Did I miss something, Eric?
Ryan Tannehill at this point in his career is not a spry.
He used to be a receiver. A wide receiver in college.
20 years ago, Jeff. 20 years ago. Tom Brady probably won his second grade.
Eric's just smiling over there. He knows I'm making points that make sense here. Look, if you want to think they are like the more dominant team, I that's fine. I get it. But it's also okay to say they won the game and they had some things in their favor during the game that helped them win the game.
100% they
did.
That's
not. I'm saying that's the only reason they won the game was because Tannehill wasn't playing. But I'm saying the Titans had more than enough opportunities, and with a more competent quarterback, they probably could have won that game.
Let's talk about some of the reasons why this game went the way it went. Orlando Brown. Can we officially end any concept of anyone giving him, or at least anyone who plans on winning any kind of football games, giving him a multi-year deal at high dollars to play left tackle? The entire defensive game plan of Mike Vrabel was to occupy, and I talked about this with Tim Grunhard on my radio show, was to occupy the outside of Orlando Brown and the inside of Orlando Brown. So Orlando Brown had to handle a guy one.
Which, by the way, is like when you talk about the ads on your show, it's like it's I-29 and Tiffany Springs. It's like that's the entire road is the inside and the outside of Orlando Brown. Like that's a lot of space to occupy.
Well, there is, but I mean, I do think that's like one of the things that was different was, look, not everybody's Mike Vrabel. Like I think Mike Vrabel is Bill Belichick 2.0. Right? You give him equal teams, Vrabel will kick Belichick's ass at this point. Number one, he's not hiring every relative he has. And number two, he's not bringing defensive coordinators in to be offensive coordinators, doing ridiculous things that you start to do when you get old and think you can just wave wands and make things happen. But he looked at what the 49ers game plan was, which was terrible, deconstructed it, and put together a brilliant game plan. Now, can he do it again? He'll be just like Belichick. It won't be the same thing because he'll know you're prepared for this. He'll come up with something different. And on that day, it may or may not hit to the degree it hit this time. But I think the things that came out of this, if you're Andy Reid and the Chiefs, are, one, stop dropping the ball. It looked like the first 7 games of last year with guys not catching the football. And Mahomes looked pissed, and rightfully so. 2, they've got to figure out the protection better. They couldn't. Vrabel put them on their heels, and they were literally playing defense on offense with their protection because of the 3-on-1 side to overload and force Orlando Brown to block 1-on-1. They couldn't give him help, and he sucked. He was terrible, right? I think that is a significant development from this game. But I don't think that they're going to drop balls the way they did in this game in the future, and I think that would make a very big difference. The running game, I'm all ears on that one. 13 carries for 14 yards. Again, see the O-line being overmatched. And I think that's the big picture scary thing for the Chiefs is 2 years ago, you thought you fixed the O-line. You didn't. You helped it, but it's not fixed. The tackles are a real issue for this football team. The running back talent is a problem. Like
they don't have a tight end who can block anything like that. You know, Noah Gray had a great game catching the football, but he can't block. He can't block anything. Travis is, small and can't, he's a willing blocker, but he's not great. And the running backs stink. Like Pacheco stinks. Let's call a spade. Clyde, he has his moments. He's a one-cut guy. This isn't a one-cut offense. And the other part is Andrew Wiley. Like Lucas Niang came back to practice the other day. Like Lucas Niang needs to play for this team fairly quickly.
If he can, yes. That should.
I mean,
be an issue.
Petro, what do you? I mean, the thing, like, they get Blake Bell back at some point, right? Like, and I know that's not a big deal, but Blake Bell was a big part of this offense last year in terms of running the football. They, we're halfway through the year. McKinnon's not injured. Like, I think that they very clearly want to play him when they need him, as evidenced yesterday, on Sunday, right, where he played 60% of the game when they needed him. I mean, when do you transition to Ronald Jones running downhill with McKinnon being the third down guy? Like, when does that happen? Because
let's not open that Pandora's box again.
I mean,
in this space,
and we're not. This isn't a second guess. Jeff and I and you, Petro, have been banging the drum for this for 2 months.
Yes,
like,
I mean, they came out. It appeared that they came out and they said, "Well, we're going to do to the Titans, Jeffrey Simmons is shooting his mouth off, so we're going to do to them just like we did the Niners. We're going to come play physical, smash mouth." And the Titans went, "Whatever, punch you right back." And they didn't have the answer for that. And it wasn't Andy Reid's best day. He got, but Andy Reid's been gotten before, and he bounces back, and he usually gets the guy the next time. I mean, he usually wins most of them. And Vrabel's great. I love Mike Vrabel. He's about the only defensive coach I would hire as a head coach right now. That he, Tomlin, and Belichick are the only ones. Otherwise, me, I'm all about an offensive coach. But I think all those things are great. But I think at the end of the game, it was time to win, and they had to move the ball. And they said, "Okay, here it is." And this is one of the things we've talked about it before: employing fourth down. Like, when you have Patrick Mahomes. Right? I know we're going to get to him about the MVP. But when you have Patrick Mahomes, stop screwing around. And to Andy Reid's credit, the run wasn't working. He didn't keep pounding it a million times. And maybe I'm sure there were spots where he could have run the ball a little bit more and been more effective. But they found a way to win. Yes, when they entered the fourth quarter, they only had 9 points. And when they ended the game, they had more points. And that's the most important part of the game. Not the 56 minutes that were kind of going against you. I think it's fool's gold. I've listened to so many loser coaches talk about, well, if we just this, and this, then we win. No, you didn't.
But you just talked about if they didn't drop passes, or if Butker doesn't miss the field goal. We can have that argument all the time. End of the day, is this team good enough to beat the Buffalo Bills in a playoff game?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think they're good enough. I don't think they will. Because what happens in these kind of games, what happens in these kind of games is that you don't feel the kind of pressure in the Titans game that you feel against Buffalo when they can score.
We got to frame this properly. You don't necessarily have to be lucky, but will they be favored against the Bills in the playoffs?
No, they won't.
No. Okay, so you have to be. So you have to be a little lucky to beat the Bills in the playoffs, right?
No, you just have to have a better scheme. They're closer to the Bills in talent than the Titans are the Chiefs. Vrabel overwhelmed Vrabel and his coaching staff had a much better day. They won 10-6 on the scorecard, right, against the Chiefs coaching staff. Talent-wise, the Chiefs have more talent. That's what gave them the win when it was all said and done. And Andy Reid got around to calling enough good plays. But here's my frustration with the way you frame it, Jeff, is that you beat the drum for the Titans and belittle the Chiefs because the Titans were winning for, 52 minutes, or when did the game get tied? Whenever it was. And that's the celebration of the Titans. Yet you turn around and take a game that was played this year with this year's talent that the Chiefs led with 58 minutes and 50 seconds to go. They were winning. And in that game, you give a definitive Chiefs can't beat the Bills mark when they had a better day in the end as far as time spent leading against the Bills than the Titans did against the Chiefs.
Not in the end. That's the whole point I'm making, is that when you have that pressure on you offensively, it's different when you're Mahomes in those situations. He's never faced that.
I'm fine with, yes, any team that can score changes the dynamics versus a team that can't. Other teams with a quarterback certainly change the dynamics. But the overall caliber of the game, you can't sit here and tell me the Chiefs are screwed because the Titans, were leading this game for 48 minutes. But tell me the Chiefs have no shot against the Bills when they led for 58.
No, but that's not what Jeff said. That's not what Jeff said. I didn't say this.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm talking about what Jeff said.
That's not what I said.
No, he said that. No. He said that, like, he alluded to the fact that the Chiefs have to get a little lucky to beat the Bills, which is absolutely true, Petro. It's the same thing. And again, like, this is, guys, we're gonna take a step back. and we're going to show the power of math here. Last year, Jeff ridiculed me and mocked me for saying the Chiefs were like the second or third best team in the league, right? And they eventually it found its level. Now we're on the same side of the argument because even though the Chiefs played a nice little game against the Bills, got some good variance on fourth down, and played hard and showed us all they can beat the Bills without beating them, we still have to come to the fact that if the Bills are healthy and some people are talking about Josh Allen's elbow, that's a huge deal. But if the Bills are healthy, they're going to be favored against the Chiefs on either field, neutral.
Yes.
But that's all he's saying, Petro.
That's been acknowledged, Eric. I acknowledge who will be the favorite. And by the way, the world is not the betting line. Okay, so the point is luck. This is the deal. Do you live your life by luck? I am honestly floored that a mathematician is going to run around with his hocus pocus luck world. Bullshit. It is not coming down to luck. That's
luck
not
is the first order term in football. Luck is like luck.
You know what luck is for you mathematicians? It's because I deal with this every NCAA tournament time when we get to who's the big NCAA tournament, does the bracket, he gets all the credit. I can't even whatever. Anyway, he's got all these mathematical columns. Who is it?
Lenardi.
No, not Lunardi. That's the bracket guy. No, the mathematician guy who Ken Palm. Ken Palm has all these, home efficiency, shooting efficiency, all these different things, tempo, all this. And then he's got a column, luck. You know what that is? The part I can't figure out. Well, let's just call it luck. There's the luck variant. Luck is for the part that the mathematicians, when they lose, well, that was luck. All my math was right, but we got unlucky. Screw that.
This is coming from a person who was cocksure that the Chiefs would blow the Titans out.
I'm not saying I got unlucky.
Luck,
you don't hear that shit out of my mouth.
I gave a lecture at Xavier Friday, and they said, "What is a lesson about success?" And I said, "A lesson about success is to handle luck, both good and bad. Like it's good and bad. We're talking about the Chiefs getting good luck this week, and I'll tell you when they have shitty luck. Sorry,
it's okay to be lucky. It's okay if the result works for you. It's okay to be lucky.
That's fine.
It's not even round. It's not even round, Petro. There is complexity and there is stochasticity in this system.
I agree. I agree with Terry. Time to move on. We'll agree to disagree. You sit around and wish and hope and put your luck in one hand, crap in the other one, and see which one fills up.
Petro, when you and I play blackjack in Vegas and you won
there was no luck. There was random math that I caught a run and I raised my bets at the right time. There was no luck. None.
When I looked at you and said, "You're really good at this game," you could not tell that I was being sarcastic. Like, this is, come on, Petro.
There was no luck. There's no luck. I'd sit and play that way the same time.
That night was even lucky, Petro. We live in a stochastic world.
Enough about luck. And you go sit and wait on your luck to hit, and I'll get to work. Tell me, JuJuSmith-Schuster, Jeff, is he a number one wide receiver?
No. He's been a good receiver of late. I like JuJu. When he's healthy, he's productive. And
by the way, I've been trying to find him in the locker room to find out what his weight is, and he's gone into hiding mode. He was there like every week early on. I have not seen him in the locker room for 4 weeks because I want to get to the bottom of whether or not he's bulked up. But anyway, go ahead about JuJu.
I think he is. I said it a few weeks ago when they were trying to spread the football to everybody and getting Justin Watson his touches and Michael Burton his passes, and got to have some go-to guys. The offense will function better with go-to guys, and so JuJu has emerged as that. He is at his best doing what he's doing for this offense. I think that they need him even more so now because I thought MVS wasn't playing in that game for about 3 quarters. He just vanished. And Sky Moore, I don't know how you can draw up plays for Kadarius Toney, who's been here for like 48 hours, and you can't get anything going for Sky Moore. So he's even more critical. JuJu is even more critical of the offense now with his what he's been able to do, his consistency. And so, I think he's a great story right now. I wouldn't pay him as a number one receiver, and I'm sure he's looking at his current stats and thinking, if I can keep this up, I got a big payday coming. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I think right now he's definitely been impressive.
Eric, what is JuJu?
JuJu's a good number 2 complimentary receiver. And I think, unfortunately, what is going to happen is he's going to price himself out of the Chiefs market because there's the market for Christian Kirk, right? And wide receivers that are decent, there aren't that many of them in free agency, right? And so there's going to be some team that gives him that much money. I'm pretty sure his agent probably knows that, right? And there's going to be some team with a young quarterback, maybe Chicago, I don't know. I think, maybe New England, somebody like that who's trying to foster a young quarterback is going to want to give JuJu $20 million a year. And, that I think is going to be, going to price him out of the Chiefs market.
What do we make of the fact that the kid averaged almost 16 yards a catch as a rookie with 7 touchdowns over the course of 14 games? Next year, he plays 16. Gets 1,400 yards, averages almost 1,300 yards a catch, 7 touchdowns. I mean, that was there in him. He's 26 years old right now, right? Like, in the following years, in the 3 years in between, 12 games, 16 games. That year, he had 97 catches for 831 yards and 8.6 yards per catch, which is amazing that you can get a receiver down that low on the yards, yards per reception. Yeah. But tell me, like, you don't see an upside there? Like if he ends up going for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns or something, what's he? I'm going to figure out what he's on.
The upside is what they just got, right? That 1 year up to 10 million.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
this is Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, we can't talk about Patrick Mahomes like, oh my God, when all the chips are down, like this guy comes out and pulls the game out like this. And then, oh my God, they absolutely have to sign JuJuSmith-Schuster to $20 million a year. Like, those things aren't compatible, right? Like, either Pat can do it with anybody, I mean, more or less,
right?
Or he can't, right? And I'm of the belief he can't, right? And I think the Chiefs are, right? Like, so and I know that they'll have the space, right? Like, they've done a good job, like, of getting themselves out of this. But just because you can doesn't mean you should, when it comes to JuJuSmith-Schuster.
No, and my point isn't to say go pay him that, and I don't think the Chiefs will. We've talked about it. I think he's one and done. There's almost no scenario. It's too fine a needle to thread to try to find the scenario where he can't get way more money from somebody else desperate for a wideout than the Chiefs would be willing to pay him. But I do think right now, coming down the stretch, I think he's becoming a go-to guy. Like, fine, we won't use the term number 1, but a dangerous weapon, Jeff, that, defenses have to account for, or that at least is continuing to open up space. Now, Travis Kelce had to fight through a lot of spots in the Titans. Listen, the Titans had a great. They had the 99 Rams, the 99 Patriots game plan against the Rams, or what was it? 0-1 Patriot game plan against the Rams. They mauled every receiver. They held. They dared the refs to call it on every time. I think that's another way that Andy Reid said it was just too flippant on Monday when I asked him about, what do you tell your receivers about? I knew he wasn't going to take the bait on going after the officials, but I said, what do you tell your receivers when they're really holding it? Well, we knew it was coming. We did our bunches and our stacks and this now. Well, you didn't get them off clean. Like, I ain't buying that answer. Like, if you thought they were going to maul you that much and get away with it, bad scout job, because they were killing you. And that's one of the things when you drop back, 80 some odd times, and your receivers are being mauled and the other team drops back 15 times, there's no evening out, right? That was a huge disadvantage. I said, this isn't like an umpire who's calling both teams the low strike, right? Like, no, one team was throwing on every down. One team wasn't throwing at all. So that was a huge disadvantage for the Chiefs. Not an excuse, but it was a huge disadvantage. Different. I think that's another reason why I don't think they were lucky. They're unlucky with the ref crew they got, the way they called the game. I'm not going.
Yeah, but the Chiefs play the same way. It's like that's no different than what they've done in the past. I mean, they're handsy too.
It doesn't matter when you play a wishbone team. Like, there's no way to get that call. They didn't throw the ball.
I don't know. I think to go back to the point you're making about JuJu, he's good with the number 1 receiver. He's played with 2 of the best receivers in the history of football, in Travis Kelce and Antonio Brown. I don't know what he can do. And granted, I think somebody mentioned that he had some tough luck with Roethlisberger at the end of his career, and injuries, other guys who are not good quarterbacks throwing in the football. Ultimately, you don't want to invest in someone like that, given what you're trying to accomplish with your roster. And it's just, again, I like the guy, but I think he's going to be overpaid and playing for somebody else next year.
Yeah. I like this, by the way. I agree. I wish the Chiefs would have been on the Calvin Ridley trade. I think that would have been a good one to get a guy.
Why? So you could berate him for gambling on your show?
Who did I berate for gambling? I berated you for equating the defining answer to everything being what the spread is. That's what not the gambling part. I have no problem with the gambling part.
But like when we think about JuJu from a contract standpoint, like the Chiefs have to think about Chris Jones. They have to think about L'Jarius Sneed, who I think after kind of a down year last year, pretty damn good year this year, right? They don't necessarily have to, right? He was 20.
Think about left tackle.
They have to think about left tackle.
Maybe a right tackle.
Right. I think that there are just too many other things that, that the Chiefs could do at a more cost-effective thing than buy JuJu at the top of the market, right?
And I think that'll be listen, here's what I would say. By the way, last year Christian Kirk was 77 for 982 and 5, and he got what? 4 years, it ended up being for $72 million. JuJuSmith-Schuster's on pace for 94 for 1,200 and 5 touchdowns. So he is on pace to do more than Christian Kirk did. Christian Kirk, by the way, was 25. JuJu is 26. I mean, and the other receivers that are out there are not as good. JuJuSmith-Schuster is going to get, I think, a contract like that. Do the Chiefs want to pay it? I don't know. I mean, I think you want weapons for Mahomes. We've detailed how thin it is, and that's something they can figure out at the end of the year and see how he plays the rest of the way. They got to figure out what McCole Hardman is as well. But I think the moral of the story of because I've seen up here, Brett Veach has to get skill position players, right? Like I'm taking the tone as like it's a fresh. Brett Veach has to get a left tackle. Brett Veach has to get a right tackle. Brett Veach has to get an edge rusher. No. Brett Veach had to sign the quarterback, and he did. And this is what you get when you do. And so, like this, they're not going to get a 16 sack guy, a premium left tackle, a top shelf right tackle, and a number one wide receiver all in one off season. So, and if they do, it'll be an all in move for 1 year, and they'll be crap 2 years later.
What is this whole Brett Veach can't draft? I mean, McCole Hardman's
that was some of the comments.
Yeah. Like I think that. Yeah, I mean. Right tackle is a position you can access in free agency. They did it with Mitchell Schwartz, right? Mitchell Schwartz was on a bargain for a huge amount of time for the Chiefs. So you can piece that together. You could possibly draft somebody and have him complete with Lucas Niang at left tackle. Like there are some things you can do. I still think they should examine the Joe Thuney angle at left tackle as well. We talked about that. Like there are ways to build this thing up. It's just, it's going to be tough. And I just don't know if you can plop $20 million a year on JuJu and make sure that the rest of your roster is resilient.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And that's going to be a question for the offseason that they have to figure out. But I think right now, I mean, they eventually got a rhythm and got going up and down the field on the Titans. The protection is an issue, right? Like that's we agree on that's an issue. Is the kicker an issue? Is Harrison Butker an issue, Jeff? Like, I mean, do you see him as, he's the second most, I brought that up and asked that question, and I got hit from a friend of mine who's like, hey, he's the second most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL at like 89%. That's even after his 5 of 8 start this year. He was over 90% coming into this year. Are we just being overly critical of a guy who set an impossible standard, or should the Chiefs be worried about where he's at right now?
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard to remember the kicks he's missed and made throughout this 8-9 game stretch here, because so many different kickers were in the lineup. It's a bit of a problem just because he's missing some easy stuff and the extra point. But I mean, I feel like every long kick he's had to kick, he's made, which I think is going to matter more as you get into the postseason and trying to figure out if you can compete for the number 1 seed. I think that a guy with his kind of leg, you trust him to figure that part out. I think he's been pretty good. As you mentioned, the numbers suggest that. But yeah, I mean, it is a little bit surprising that he's been a little more erratic of late from shorter distances. But I don't know, that 65-yarder he hit, or whatever 62. It was, 62-yarder, was pretty impressive coming off an ankle injury. I'll take that all day long.
Eric, concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I just think he struggles with the short stuff, right? And like that is like a mental thing. The long stuff is like there's not a lot of expectation, so you can swing through, and if it doesn't go in, we're not going to ding him for missing a 55-yarder and stuff. But the short stuff is where he's kind of in his own head.
Yeah, I'm concerned because I worry that he's hurt, right? Like that he's not really healthy, and that the ankle's worse than we think. It's never going to be okay this year, and he's not steady on it. He's not planning as definitively as he would, and the kicking motion is like a golf swing, and you get it a little bit off or favor a leg, and it can be all screwed up. And we've seen him kind of get sideways. We've seen him just be nails. We've seen him be like what's his name in Baltimore for stretches, long kicks, short kicks, all the kicks, knocking it through. But then we also saw him, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, where he kept missing extra points. And I refuse to believe that it's like, well, it's because it's just an extra point. No, you want luck. I won't call it luck. I'll call it random math. Randomly, his misses, he was off, and the ones that happened to not go through at that distance happened to be extra points and not field goals. I don't think it was he got lucky. I don't think there was. I think the psyche of kicking is the psyche of kicking, and he was off for a stretch, and the ones that didn't go through happened to be the 1-pointers, not the 3-pointers. But I think you do have to be a little bit concerned. I mean, do his kicks? I don't think his kickoffs have been as deep, have they? I don't know that it hasn't been their game plan to bring it shorter, but I think there should be a little bit of cause for concern that, if you're going to be playing closer games, that this guy might not be right. Like, are we confident he's 100%?
I don't. High ankle sprain, it's hard to know. I'm sure he's gutting it out to a certain extent, but this is way more thought I've ever put into kickers in my life. I feel like someone said, who else you're going to get? You got to kind of ride with the dude at this stage. He's been around for some of your biggest moments. You hope he figures it out. I remember who was the Packers kicker a long time, Mason Crosby. He was dinging him for a couple years ago. Like last year, he was having a hard time making field goals and missed some early ones and found a way to make it happen. I mean, ultimately, if you like somebody and he's been good for you, you kind of got to ride through some of the tough times sometimes.
Yeah, I think it'll be an issue. Defensively, there's no doubt. I mean, they're playing a team that had one hand tied behind its back with its quarterback and a rookie that they didn't trust to drop back and throw real routes. Everything was some kind of gimmicky route with one option. And when it worked, it was great. And once that was done and figured out, he had absolutely nothing. But it's still an NFL team with the best running back on the planet. And they held him to 229 yards. I think it was, 2 carries for 80 yards. If you take his 2 longest ones, it was 15 for about 30-something yards. You ask every team out there that's got to play the Titans, will you take 17 for 115? I think they all would, right? Like something's going right if he's only getting to 17 touches. Where do you sit on this defense, Eric, and how confident and where it ranks?
The problems that we saw on Sunday were foreseen, right? The Derek Nottie, they put in Kylan Saunders. I think he was part of the solution. That was good. The Malik Willis thing, I don't take a ton of stock in terms of Dunlap's pressure and all that kind of stuff. It's sort of, with Willis in the pocket, it was kind of a mess. Like against a quarterback with a little bit more pocket awareness, I wonder how their pressure will do. But they've been better at pressure this year and better at sacks. So, and in coverage, I know the whole Trent McDuffie hasn't been targeted yet this year, but he played half a game against the Cardinals. He played a game against Malik Willis, so who knows what that even means. But the injuries at corner are also something where you get a little worried when you see like somebody like Joshua Williams go down for a little bit. So I'm bullish on this defense, but obviously it's not something where I'm like, okay, they can win because of this defense. I think they're going to win with this defense, and I think that's always been the bar for this Chiefs defense.
Where do you sit, Jeff? Time to check in. We're roughly halfway.
I'm in the same boat. I mean, I look at they've played well against teams with statuesque quarterbacks or limited quarterbacks and limited receivers. And when they face teams that had good receivers and good running backs and better quarterbacks, they haven't looked as good. And so that makes them middle of the road for me. I mean, they're definitely better than they were at this stage last year. I don't I don't trust their corners against top flight receivers. We'll see what happens if Jamar Chase is playing when they play the Bengals. We'll see what happens when they see Cooper Kupp, someone like that. I think the great thing about Steve Spagnuolo's defense is that it is built to take advantage of teams that are one-dimensional. And when you have 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions to you, it's a little bit harder to cover up some things. So, again, I've been saying it all year long. A great receiver who can dictate coverage, and there aren't a ton of those guys in this league. One of them is playing in Miami right now, and you're seeing how their offense looks. They changed the game for you in a lot of different ways. And when you don't have that guy on the field, I mean, the Titans didn't have a receiver catch a pass in this game. It's a big, big handicap. So, I think that they'll beat up on teams that are limited. And we get in the playoffs, I think there will be bigger challenges.
Well, we see the defensive rank be muddling along here a lot. And then as they close down the stretch, and I think somebody even put up here that the Chiefs play like, only 3. Yeah, here it is. Darby says Chiefs only play like 3 teams with a winning record back half of the season. Statistically speaking, they're going to climb, I think, over the last half of the season. I'm still more bullish on the defense. I still think I think it'll finish in the top half. I think it's 20th in points and 20th in yards right now. I think that's kind of settling out to being the same. But I think at the end of the day, to Eric's point about the offense earlier on, if the offense is on, the defense is plenty good. Can we go there, Eric?
Yeah, and I also think there have been games, much like this one, much like the Los Angeles Chargers game, where the offense didn't play well enough, and the defense stole a game for them, right? Like, I think the Chargers game, for example, they were out of sync for a lot of that game, and not only the pick 6 by Jalen Watson, but also I think it was like 3 and outs in the third quarter that helped them come back from 10 points down. Obviously, this game, they shut the door on the Titans pretty profoundly. So, it's a defense where, like last season, especially early in the year, I don't think they were even capable of winning with that defense at times, right? And let alone winning because of them in some games. I think that this team is capable of winning games with their defense. It's just not the expectation I have every week, but good on them because they do have the talent, I think, to steal a game or 2 when the offense doesn't play great.
We're going to find out what they do against the Jaguars, right? Who come in, young quarterback, Doug Peterson, good offense. What do you expect the defense to do against the Jags, Jeff?
Well, it depends on which Jags team shows up. I mean, if they have moments like they had earlier this year when Trevor Lawrence looked like a quarterback who was on the rise, and Travis Etienne is quietly become one of the hottest backs in football, 100 yards, 3 straight weeks. It could be interesting. But I think the thing that I look at with this kind of game is when you play a physical opponent like the Titans, it takes a toll on you in the coming weeks. So the Chiefs should win the game, but I could see it being an ugly game just because it's hard to come from that, come back the next week and really be spry. I've said it before. Trap game is a bettor's lingo. I just don't believe in them. I think every week you got to go out there.
Trap games, no chance.
Yeah, lucky. Trap games. I don't believe NFL teams show up like, the Chargers are over here, so let's just kind of coast through this and let's get ready for the next one. I think that every week stuff. I think the Jets wasn't a trap game for the Bills. I think the Jets are a good team with a really good defense, and they played better that day. I think that is how it goes. So would I be surprised if the Chiefs lost? No, but I also feel like the Chiefs are the better team, and they have more experience. And that should matter. And they have the better quarterback. And so that should matter on Sunday.
Jaguars, trap game, Eric?
I agree with Jeff. I mean, I think that there's the point. Margin of victory is smaller in divisional games. It's bigger in games on average that where there's not familiarity, right? The Jags and the Chiefs don't play that many times. So I think that there is more variance in a game like this. We saw Andy not produce his best game on Sunday. I would imagine he would come out and produce better in this game, but who knows? I think that's the big thing is is he motivated to put together a good game plan? Because I think when he just kind of lets Jesus take the wheel with the offense, sometimes it can look like the Colts game. It can look like the Chargers game. It can look like the game we saw on Sunday. To me,
that's amazing to me. You don't buy into the fact that players can look ahead or have a trap game, but Andy can mail in a game plan.
I mean, I think there's statistical evidence for it. Like if you look at scheme uniqueness and stuff, it peaks when they play Baltimore. It peaks when they play Buffalo. He does save the good plays. But I don't think that's like a
by design, not like I don't care.
Yeah, I think he comes into games thinking he can win. Like it's not an execution thing; it's literally a tactic, right?
That he's just going to let the talent win as opposed to coming up with a quality scheme.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to clarify because I think people on the comments are kind of looking at to me, trap games happen in college because you're dealing with teenage kids who aren't emotionally, psychologically mature enough to handle success. And so when you get up and get going, it's what were you going to say?
Unlike the super mature 23-year-olds that inhabit the NFL?
Well, some of these guys are 27, 28, 29. And to me, the whole point here is that, and this applies to Buffalo and Philly this year too, the difference in talent in the NFL is so small. And people think it's like Alabama versus North Carolina State, and it's not. It's not. Yeah. Anybody in this league can beat anybody anytime. And so when it happens, when you have close games, we do it here sometimes where it's like, oh, it's going to be 40-20 or 40-14 when the Titans play the Chiefs. And it's like most games in the NFL are close games. The Chiefs have played what? Of all their wins, they've been in a one-score game in the fourth quarter in 4 of them, right? The Niners, the Chargers, the Raiders, and this week. I mean, that's what I'm talking about is that if you have 1 or 2 things go a different direction for you, you're going to lose games. So to me, that's why I don't believe in the idea of trap games in the NFL because you can get beat any week by anybody.
Yes, I would say they have the 3rd largest point differential in the NFL. And that's where most people put them in the power rankings. And the 2 teams that have a bigger one are the 2 teams you'd put in front of them. The Buffalo Bills at plus 102 and the Eagles at plus 90.
But again, the point I'm making is they're still playing in games that are close games that could certainly affect their record.
At least entering the end. I'm going to have to look at it, like what their fourth quarter is, though. Because you mentioned, it was a 1-score game in the game against the Niners. At the end, it was an ass-kicking.
But it was a 1-score game.
They were down 1 score against the Titans. In the end, they outscored them by 12 points in the fourth quarter in overtime. Or by 11 points. I mean, that does seem to be a consistent theme, doesn't it?
The theme,
when the game is on the line, the Chiefs are outscoring their opponents.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is the Titans had a chance to win that game at the end, just as the Chargers had chances to win that game at the end, just as the Raiders had a chance to win that game at the end. The Niners game got out of hand, but ultimately, all 3 of those teams had the football in their hands with a chance to win the game at the end.
All right, predictions. Who you got, Eric?
I'll take Chiefs 28-19.
28-19. So by 9 not covering, you like the Jags and the points then?
I mean, I'm not the same way I did last week, but the Jaguars are earmuffs and have been unlucky so far this year. They have a positive point differential despite being 3-6. Their net success rate is pretty high relative to the rest of the teams in the league. They are a team that has been snake bitten by 1-score games. To Jeff's point, a lot of these teams are basically equal down the stretch, and they've gotten the wrong side of it. They're not a terrible team, but I do think last week was a little bit of a wake up call. I do think that they're gonna. The Chiefs are going to figure it out today. I think that it's more likely that the Jags come through the back door to cover than they cover wire to wire like the Titans did.
Okay, Jeff?
I got Chiefs 28-17. 17.
I'm going to go. So you're right at the number. So you've got them covered by a half. And it was 10.5 at least when I looked yesterday. So you're right around the number. Just to be away from the number, I'll go Chiefs 34, Jags 20. And I think the 20 is backdoored. I think it's 34-13, and the Jags with an oh, by the way. I think this is a more consistent performance out of the Chiefs where they steadily just win every quarter, to the tune of 10-6. And at the end of the day, there they are winning by more than 2 touchdowns or right at 2 touchdowns. That's how I see this game going. I do think that the Patrick Mahomes thing is real. He's really good. And if they can get if Andy Reid can scheme protection, they blow people out. Right? Like that's what it comes down to. If he can scheme protection like they did against the Niners, they will hammer the Jags. If the Jags look at this and if Andy can't come up with the protection plan to combat what the Titans did, because I think the one thing we can all agree on is the shell defenses are back. Like teams are the dumbasses blitzing and playing man-to-man, they've been debunked, and everybody's going to get back to dropping at least 7. What I thought was interesting about the Titans was they played containment on Mahomes, basically. It said, we're going to try to keep you in the pocket. He escaped for 6 carries for 65 yards, a touchdown and a 2-pointer. Those were all big things. But and Sam McDowell made this point yesterday to me, he dropped back over 80 times when you count his attempts, the penalties, and all that. To really only get beat 6 times, they did a hell of a job against his legs, and they did a good job of bending but not breaking against the passing part of it. And I think that is absolutely what everybody's going to do. How do the Jaguars have a Matt Milano to spy on him? Can their front 4 get after him? I mean, the number 1 overall pick in the draft has 2.5 sacks. Josh Allen, God's gift to everybody wanted the Chiefs to give whatever it would take to get him, has 3 sacks. You know who leads the Jaguars in sacks? Anyone want to take a shot at that one?
Devin Lloyd.
No.
Foye Oluwakan.
No.
Are you looking it up right now?
No, I know. I'm just I can't remember.
I have no idea.
I'm looking up his first name so I get it right.
Arden Key.
Nope. Take another shot, or we want me to just tell you?
Are we gonna go through the whole defense?
I mean, I think it would be interesting to see if you did name them all and still didn't get to Dwayne Smoot.
Oh, yeah, he was good last year.
Clearly top of mind.
I was going to say, I probably name their entire defense.
5 sacks for Dwayne Smoot.
Well, one thing I will say about their defense, it is athletic. They do have speed.
Yeah.
They probably can scheme some things up. That kind of front could be problematic for their tackles. If
this game's a grinder or the Jags pull the upset, it will be the coming out party for Trayvon Walker.
Yeah.
Because his get off is good, and he will make Orlando Brown look rough.
It could be like the Titans last year when Landry and but was the Budgepree there last year? We're just flying around the edge every play.
Yeah. And there's no bigger athletic mismatch at any position this entire season that you're ever going to see league wide than Trayvon Walker versus Orlando Brown.
Yes. And so if Trayvon Walker is going to have a coming out party, this will be it. So we'll wait and see. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com, Eric Eager, Sumer Sports, SumerSports.com. I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810, 810WHB.com, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red.